Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a flashlight video for you. We have another Acebeam, and in fact, this was the light I mentioned I was kind of hoping would be here at the same time as this light. This was the E70 we looked at a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, I'm not sure. We have here the other similarly styled light from Acebeam. This is, let me take a close look at it. This is the Acebeam Rider RX. So you can see much smaller, more suited to an EDC style. Not that this is huge, but this is going to be a little more comfortable and have a slightly different purpose. Before we move on from this, I do want to throw out there again the point that I made previously that these are really, really handsome lights. So let's throw in a couple of other options. And I think, you know, if we were going to have ourselves a little flashlight fashion show, it seems a little odd to be saying that, but nonetheless, you know, I think most of us would say, yeah, these are very, very attractive. Now, there are other attractive lights out there. Preon has a couple, Surefire has a couple that are kind of interesting. Of course, there's some nice looking O lights out there as well. I'm not arguing that there aren't, okay, but these are some pretty nice looking lights. Let me get some stuff out of the way and we'll carry on specifically with our discussion of the Rider. So yeah, you can see the styling on this is pretty compelling. Couple little things, the pocket clip, you know, that's not going to maybe be everybody's cup of tea, but it does achieve something worthwhile, which is, you know, the ability to clip this on the brim of your hat or something else so that you can use it to, you know, you can adjust the direction you want to look while it's clipped onto something. So there's a practical purpose there. By the way, while we're touching on, you know, some incidental stuff, there are other versions of this. So if you Google this, you can find this is the titanium, but there's like stainless steel. There's sort of a rainbow anodized one. There's probably just a plain black one, and there might be a couple of others as well. So if the titanium is not your cup of tea, you have some other options. The other cool thing about this is this little fidget factor that it has. You can see that the titanium is sort of an outer sleeve, and inside that aluminum body can, unless you're filming, because of course dexterity goes right out the window as soon as you turn a camera on, but you've got this little feature where you can sort of mess with the light using just the location of the pocket clip there. And this is actually necessary if you want to pop this front off here to get the battery out. We'll do that in a minute or two. Before we do, just a quick rundown on size. So this is a sort of a double A type of size. So similar to the Olight i5T, a AA battery or a 14500 can fit in here. And, you know, with the 14500, that's how you're going to get the best performance out of this, especially the specific battery that Acebeam has made for it. So that's one thing that's important to notice. So quick rundown on the actual specs here before we go any further. So what we're looking at here in terms of size is 3 3/4 inches long, so just a hair under 4 inches there. The diameter on this is, you know, it's between 5/8 and 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's the size here. There's the E70, just to give you an idea. You know, it's a bit more than half. If you kind of put these side by side, you can see that. All right. And in terms of the actual weight of this, the titanium version anyway is going to weigh in at 2.5 ounces. So to me, that's a pretty comfortable EDC size and weight. And I have popped this in my pocket a couple times and carried it around, and it seems pretty comfortable. So I do want to quickly give you a look at the battery here that we're dealing with. In addition to this little fidget factor, this also serves to allow you to get at the cap there. You can see the copper and the O-ring that's in there, and there's the electronic side from the emitter. So let's take a little quick look at this battery. Specifically, we want to notice the charging port. So This is a 14500. Some of you will be really into all these numbers. All right, 920 milliamps, 3.7 volt. And of course, it's USB Type C charging, which to me is pretty spectacular. That's a good function for me. I know some people, now I guess you do have the option with this of pulling that out and replacing it with a double A. You're not going to get the same performance, okay? Now, I did have a couple of comments, and I've had this in the past. In fact, I've talked about this in previous flashlight videos about whether or not I prefer to be able to charge my light or to just have other batteries. So you can, if you look around a little bit, get a second battery, have it charged so you could just swap those out and still get the same performance. Or in a pinch, you can also drop a AA battery in there, but you're not going to get the same lumen output from a AA as you're going to get from even from a normal 14500, you're not going to get the same lumen output. It needs to be the specific Acebeam battery. So if you really want the exact performance, you'll have to have that. You have to buy a specific battery like that as a backup. Okay. The other option, of course, and the reason I don't bother doing that, if this was your single solitary flashlight, that would make a lot of sense, maybe to have one or two. But because I have the other options that you've seen, I don't worry about it. I always, if I'm camping, if I'm hiking, if I'm walking the dog, I'm going to throw a couple of extra flashlights in with me anyway. I have a flashlight always in, the backpacks that I regularly use for hiking, biking, my work bag. I've got flashlights in all of those. So there's never a time where I don't have some redundancy in my plan here. So for me, it doesn't make sense to worry about a light where I can switch out batteries all the time. I have a couple, and I do have backup batteries for them. When I was buying specific 18650s for some of the 18650 lights that I have, I would always buy 3, 4, 5 batteries so that now I've got a bunch of backup batteries, and it works. But now, honestly, I've got to store the batteries. I've got to, I have one light that's always in my bunker gear at the fire hall. I don't have a place there to store extra batteries, so I keep them in my truck. It becomes a bit of a pain in the neck. Now, that's a particular challenge that I also, a rechargeable light wouldn't work in that scenario either, because I don't have a reliable place to recharge it anyway. What I do is I try to remember every few months, 3, 4 months, to check the battery, make sure it's good, and switch it out. So back to back to our discussion. Sorry guys, I digressed a little bit on the battery thing and on what I do with the light that I keep at the fire hall. Before we move on, I just want to show you how this thing works. What's the user interface on this? So this is a tail click light, and the way it works is by quick clicking. So if you want to switch through the modes, you've got to turn it off and back on every time. So you see now it's back to low, which by the way is 7 lumens. That's good for 53 hours. Let's just do this. The next level is, or that's ultra low. The next level is low, which is 70 lumens, good for 3 hours. The next level is medium, which is 280 lumens, good for 60 minutes. And then finally in high, you're going to start it at 600 for a couple minutes. It's going to drop down to 450 for 6 minutes, and then it's going to drop down to 330. So in the high mode, you're actually only a little higher than the medium mode, and it's not meant to be used for prolonged periods. It's sort of, maybe you need to use it in a security situation, or you need a really bright light for a few minutes, but you're only going to get a couple of minutes at that really, really high lumen output. And that's a good rule of thumb for all lights. In terms of practical use, you probably want to look at, if you're buying even an O light or something, don't look at the turbo output. Of course, they're going to crank that up as high as they can, even if they can only get a minute out of it. But look at what the high output level is, and understand that that's going to be the sustainable option for you. All right, let's take a look at this clip. That's the other thing I wanted to touch on here. The clip is kind of large and obnoxious. I guess maybe part of that was it stands out, and that becomes part of the feature of the light. Notice there's a little indentation in the titanium to accommodate that sliding clip back and forth, but you are going to put a slide mark on your light over time, which that's kind of standard. It's a stonewash finish on the titanium, so that's going to be noticeable over time. what would I say overall about this light? You know, like it, dislike it. The only thing I really dislike about it is the user interface could be better. You know, having to click this on and off every time is a little annoying. Although in some ways it's better than the half push. I've had lights before where it has a tail click and you've got to like half push it to get certain functions. That is not much fun either. Okay. So this is sort of, you know, in between. If it was like half pushing all the time, I would actually say, you know, I dislike that. But being able to turn it on and off, on and off, on and off is also not great. Performance for money on this is fantastic. I think these are around, like in Canada, you know, these are like $60 or something. And the power output compared to similar sized lights is really, really good. And I think part of that is because of that proprietary battery. Okay. So that's of course something to think about. And then we have the design. And I do think from a design standpoint, this is really, really attractive. It's visually very interesting. And that fidget factor, although completely unnecessary and not really contributing a lot to the functionality, is kind of cool. And I do find myself, you know, I'll sit here and play with this over and over again, flicking it back and forth. So that's a bit of a, you know, I do find I enjoy that a little bit, even though it's not really contributing to the practical usefulness of this light. Okay, so there you go, guys. That's my take on the Acebeam Rider RX. Check those links in the description box. Whether you're looking for a flashlight, I don't think any of my partners carry Acebeam, which is a little sad, but they do carry lots of other lights. They carry knives. They carry all the stuff that we like. So please use those links. It's a huge help to the channel. Of course, if you're going to go to White Mountain Knives, use my discount code SHARPSTUFF. I will thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.